appreciate that introduction. I'm going to see if I am sharing my screen. Okay. It says I'm sharing, but I'm not sure if you are seeing what I am seeing. Are you seeing my title slide?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate it. I am really excited to be here today on a Monday, kicking the week off with this webinar to talk about communication in our virtual world. So we are going to get right to it here. Our objectives today, we want to learn about some different strategies for effective remote communication and very specifically get into some tactics. So strategies being the what and why, and tactics being the how, and get some ideas on how to use different technology tools, blah, blah, blah. These are our objectives. I feel like I have to put this slide in here because doesn't every learning, training have to have objectives? But there we go. we will get right into some meat here. First, I want to tell a little bit about my story and why I'm even talking about this topic today. So I have been doing technology project and portfolio management for the last 17, 18 years. I love it. Like, I want to share with you just a little bit more about why we're taking this conversation and really digging in on this virtual communication. So when I first entered the workforce after college, I worked for an organization that did not offer an option to work from home, right? So this was back in 1999. Quite frankly, the idea of working remotely didn't even occur to me back then. Of course, you went into the office every day. That's just how it was. And over the years, technology progressed. I got a new job with a very different company. I ended up working for an organization that did allow me to work from home up to 3 days a week. But this idea was still so strange to me, I didn't even do it at first. So then I tried. I was like, all right, we're going to try 1 day a week. After working there for a while, at least a couple of years, I was like, let's try 1 day a week. And then eventually, after a couple of years more, I worked my way up to 2 days a week. And when I worked from home, I did all of my communication was over email, right? That's just how it was. I didn't do meetings at home. I would only do the stuff that I could do pretty easily remotely, right? So it was over email or phone. Like, we had a SharePoint server for sharing files, but it was rarely, if ever, used or effectively used for any real collaboration. If I had an important meeting, I would go back to the office, right? And I would go attend the meeting in the office. All of my check-ins with team members were during the days I was in the office. And then when I did work from home, I did focus solely on the work I could accomplish independently, right? Then I switched jobs, and boy was I in for a culture shock when I switched jobs. I thought I knew what it meant to work virtually, and I was wrong. So where I work today is called Leadership for Educational Equity, LEE for short, and it is a virtual organization, meaning we have no physical main headquarters. Our staff is spread across the country. Some work in rented office space. Many work solely from their home. Most, including myself, I will go into an office on average 1 day a week, and I work from home the rest of the time. I frequently get bored working in my home office, and I will leave and go work in a coffee shop or a restaurant. And at Lee, our staff travel a lot. I mean, a lot, right? Travel costs at our organization is our third highest expense. Our first is salaries, then consultants, and then travel. So we invest a lot into travel. We have staff who travel 50% or more of their time. And so we actually have to work in airports, on airplanes, on trains. Like, our work is not just remote, it is mobile, it is on the go. So approximately 80% of my meetings are virtual, at least, possibly even 90. I average 7 meetings a day, and I directly manage staff who are in DC, New York, Denver, LA, Madison, Wisconsin, and Tampa, Florida. And on top of all that, as the Vice President of Technology, it is my job to make sure that the entire organization has all the necessary tools to support our virtual and mobile work. So I had to adapt to a new way of thinking about virtual and mobile communication. I realized that the emails and phone calls alone wouldn't cut it. So that is my story. That is why I'm doing this session and want to share with all of you everything that I have learned through my experiences throughout this. So first, just a few numbers. I love statistics. So these statistics come from the 2015 PGI Global Telework Survey of nearly 3,000 workers. There is a link you'll see at the bottom to the report. So you can always use that link, and also when you get a copy of the slides, you'll have that link there. But what you'll see is this shows the frequency with which people work outside of the office on average. And this data is focused on North America, Europe, and the Middle East, and Africa, and Asia, Pacific, Japan. So we see that a majority of people work outside the office at least 1 day a week, with between 19 to 27% working outside the office 2 to 3 days a week, and that is a significant percentage. So even if you're one of the few that go in most of the time, odds are you're working with other people who do work from home or work somewhere else. And even if your office requires the staff to go in, which I have encountered, and I've done this session to people who say, this does not apply to me, I do not do any virtual work. And I'm like, well, you send emails, right? Yeah, well, email's virtual, so there you go. If anyone ever sends emails to anybody, you are working virtually. So hopefully there are going to be some tidbits of information, some practical stuff you can take away and use from this. A few other things to note. I think it's interesting that the attitudes towards teleworking are becoming more positive. And it looks like my PowerPoint just stopped, but I'm going to quickly get right back into it here. I apologize for that. Hopefully I can get here pretty fast. There we go. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. So just wanted to note that the attitudes toward teleworking are shifting to be more positive. You'll see that 60% of teleworking respondents would leave their existing job for a similar job at the same pay rate if they could work from home full-time. 55% of non-teleworking respondents said they wish they could telework. And overall, overwhelmingly, more people are working outside the office than people who only work in the office. Right? 79 to 21% of people surveyed in this poll. So the odds are that even if you do go into the office, right, like I was saying before, you do work with people who are remote. Okay, so let's go briefly into the format of what we are going to do for the rest of the session. I'm going to be sharing out a whole bunch of strategies, right? Remember, the strategy is the what and the why we do something. And then we'll connect those strategies to tactics, where the tactic is the how. And then after that, I will share for each one of those some categories of tools that can enable each of those tactics. And we're going to repeat this 6 times, right? Why 6 times? Because there is a lot of research on the topic of virtual communication. Nobody has found the single magical secret to effective virtual and mobile communication. Instead, we have many different strategies and tactics. And then it is up to us to pick out the ones that work for our company and our situation. Right? So the idea is if I present you with a whole bunch of stuff that you can pick from, you will find the stuff that applies to you and get those gems and use the ones that you think are going to be helpful and relevant for your work. All right, so to help us do that, I've created some resources for you. All right, so first I've created a worksheet. You can download that. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can paste in at least to the chat so you all can see it. Here is a link to the page on my website. All of these tools are available for download for free. And this first one is communication tactics. And it is just a list of a bunch of different reasons why we need to communicate at work. All the ones that my brain could come up with. I'm sure you will come up with others, which I have missed, and please add them in. And as we talk about tactics, I would encourage you to look at this worksheet and think about how the different tactics apply to the different communication items. Right, so it's just a way of helping you think through how would I use these different tactics, where would I put these into play. Right, so while we're talking about strategies and tactics, like I won't specifically connect them to these different communication reasons for you. That is up to you if you want to do that. But I do want you to think critically about the methods for effective virtual communication. Pick out the ones most beneficial for your situation, and possibly make some notes that connect it to your work as we go along. Okay, so that's one, and there is more. There is a worksheet called Communication Tools Checklist. Again, same link online. You can download this worksheet. And what this worksheet does is, if you download the Excel version, there's a field called Current Status that has a drop-down list. And what you would do is you would pick what your current status is today for each of these types of tools. And then depending on what you select, you will get a little notification of a green check, a little yellow exclamation mark, or a red X. And those are indicators that are recommendations to you, saying green, you're good to go, right? Yellow, you might want to look into that. And red is, this could be pretty critical. You should really definitely explore these. So it's just an evaluation tool. Again, something for you to take away. You can do it whenever you want. And there's more. We have another resource for you. There is another document online called the Other Tech Tools for Project Managers. It is a list of 16 different categories of tools that you can use, as well as within each category, 82 tools. By downloading the document, each one of those are hyperlinked, so you can just go directly out to those. This spreadsheet is not an endorsement of any of these tools. I do have favorites, but it is not by any means all-encompassing. There are many more than these, but it's a way to get started. If you're like, oh, we talked about this appointment scheduling, I think I could really use that. What are some that I could go check out? And it gives you a place to start to go look at some that you could use. Okay, so there's that one. And in case you thought I was done handing you resources, there is one more. There is one last file online that you can download if you want. It just lists out the full list of all of the resources that were used in compiling this session, as well as additional documents and things that you might find interesting on this topic. So if you are looking for additional resources, there is a document online with a list of longer resources that you might find helpful. Okay, with all of that set up, we are ready to really get into our first strategy. Remember, we're going strategy to tactic to tool. And here is our first one. For virtual communications, our first strategy is keep your communication short. Okay, why are we keeping them short? Simple, because people skim your emails and documents. That's it. Like if you think people are reading, they don't. We read fast. It's as simple as that, right? Also, people are more easily distracted during virtual meetings and phone calls. there's less accountability to give your undivided attention because people can't see everything you're doing, even with your camera on. Also, if you're on a video call, you're likely seeing up to computer, making it all the easier to get distracted by emails or messages or searching online since you're already seeing up to your computer. And I would place a bet right now that at least 50% of you are multitasking while watching this presentation. That's my bet. Maybe, maybe not, but it's very easy to do. But my point being, we want to keep our virtual communications short, right? So how do we do that? How do we actually, what are some tips on how to do this? One, first of all, plain and simple, edit your emails. Like, I don't know what to say other than just edit them. Keep them short when you write it, and if you just tend to put down your whole train of thought into email, go back and trim it down. Just edit it, make it shorter. And then put your longer communications, because sometimes you actually have a lot of information you need to share, but don't put those into your email. Put it into a document. People are actually more likely to read a long document over a long email, especially if they are asked to add comments or put questions into that document. It gets really, really hard when you are trying to put questions, comments, and such into a long email thread. It is so much easier if it is into a shared collaborative document space where everyone can see exactly what's happening in real time without passing. I'm not talking about attaching documents back and forth. I'm talking about online document sharing, so that then you can put your comments and questions directly in there. You don't have to worry about editing, version history, who said what, and you're not lost in an email thread. Right? Or if your email is just getting too long, you know, if you're like on paragraph 4, like, wait, maybe I should just schedule a time to talk. Maybe this is not, should not be put into an email. I'm also going to suggest, like, limit the length of your online meetings, right? There's only so much attention span that we've got for online meetings. So if you need 2 hours of time, consider if you could or should schedule 2 one-hour meetings instead of a 2-hour meeting. Or maybe there's other ways to break down longer virtual meeting times. So I would say typically the recommended maximum length of time for virtual meeting would be 2 hours. I would not go over that. That's max. I am speaking from very harsh, painful personal experience. The longest virtual meeting I ever sat in was 6 hours long, and I had 2 10-minute breaks. But other than those 2 10-minute breaks, I sat for 6 hours straight in the same online meeting with the same 8 people. It was torturous. Don't ever do that. That is the opposite of best practice. Kind of painful. So, and again, it's really hard to hold attention virtually. So breaking up the time helps. Right? Have video meetings with a chat feature, similar to what we have here with the chat. I don't see anyone using the chat right now, but I think it's awesome if people want to chat or just make comments to each other. What happens is the tendency to multitask can actually get directed into the chat window instead of somewhere else, right? And so it also can help you stay more on topic and more on task instead of putting your multitasking, like I need to go do 3 things at once, into another place. Some people might say the chat is distracting, but I would also consider this. The chat window is a really great way to get side comments out of people who want to make side comments during a meeting, but without digressing the meeting topic. It can actually help your meeting stay on topic and end on time. So if you get a lot of digressions, which I know my team loves to digress on, like silly jokes and sharing GIFs or memes, and it can stay over off to the side, right? Because digression or means running late is a common problem, and it can happen a lot in virtual meetings too. Try enabling a chat feature. So one thing, So yeah, I'm gonna make 2 more points on this. Sometimes it does help to be able to say like, hey, can we just move these comments to the chat window? Like, I don't want to lose what you're saying, and it can help us stay on track. So if someone is digressing, you can just ask them to put it somewhere else. But here's the other thing that I really, really like about the chat, and I'm saying this as an introvert. I am very introverted, and it is hard for me to interrupt people when they are talking in a meeting. And when you have a chat window, it actually enables your introverts to participate more. They are able to have a space where they can put in their comments and say stuff more comfortably, and you will gain insights and participation out of introverts you might otherwise not get. And I find that exceptionally valuable. So those are my strong cases for using chat window when you're doing virtual meetings. Some tools to consider. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the tools for this. You all have able to see the list of tools, but video conferencing with the chat feature we talked about and online document sharing would be really helpful. Tools to consider using and helping keep your communication short. Okay, our next strategy, frequent. Right, so we have them short but frequent. Stay connected on a regular basis. Why? Because it does help with relationship building. Frequent communication creates more opportunity for asking questions, getting advice, collaboration, which might otherwise not happen or might not happen when you need it. The when you need it part is what makes frequent communication an essential strategy for your virtual communications. Great. So how do we actually communicate more frequently virtually? Try having regularly scheduled one-on-one check-ins. They could be once or twice a week, once or twice a month, but set up a reoccurring time on your calendar to connect with key people. For example, every Tuesday, I hold a video meeting with all of my direct reports. And we go over together their priorities for the week. And then I also have scheduled 1-hour meetings once a week with each direct report to go over their work. I have once or twice a month meetings with every other vice president or organization, and weekly set meetings with my boss. And because it's reoccurring, it forces us to connect consistently. I don't have to worry about scheduling. It's just on my calendar. If we really don't need it, you can cancel it. Great, get some time back. Nothing gets me more excited than a canceled meeting. It is my favorite thing in the day if a meeting gets canceled. But to have that time there is important. Also just send random chats just to say, hey, what's up? How's your day? How's your weekend? Check out this hilarious video. It does help with your relationships, keeps them strong, lets people know you're thinking about them. But notice I did not say email. Right? I didn't say send a random email. I said send a chat. So why that distinction? And this is important. It's because it's opportunity for the other person to bring up a side conversation with you that might not otherwise happen virtually. That could likely be relevant to your work, right? So don't necessarily start this chat out with an agenda work item. Like this is legitimately just a, hey, what's up? Not a, hey, what's up? I need you to do X thing. It's just a, hey, how's it going? But this is why people stop and chat in the hallways in the office and talk in the kitchen or stop by the front reception desk to start up these side conversations. These do not happen naturally in a virtual environment, but you can deliberately create some space for those to happen by saying to someone just randomly over chat, how's it going? So really, like, important business can result from these happenstance conversations. Relationships get strengthened. You have important information shared. So yes, send people random chat. And you can even go as far, right, as to set up a task reminder to remind yourself to do that. Rotate who you reach out to randomly. Don't always go to the same people, even if you want to. Like, make sure you're actually deliberately reaching out to different people at different times. Right, so we want to keep our communication short but frequent. Real quick, some tools. Yep, make sure you've got a chat or messaging tool. Notes and checklist apps are helpful. Team collaboration app, which I think is a big one. I'm going to just hit this one real fast. And I'm talking about some examples here like Slack, HipChat, ChatGrape. These are a few. There are many others. I'm encouraging this. Here's a quick story for you. We recently put out a member survey to 30,000 members. And just before the survey launched, my team was contacted by the survey team over email with a subject line that read, major member survey issue, hashtag survey fires. That was the actual subject line of the email. Survey, hashtag survey fires. This email quickly escalated, and I quickly realized that too many communications were going to too many different people on my team, resulting in a lot of mixed messages. There's a lot of confusion. The email wasn't cutting it. Like, this is on a Friday afternoon. So rather than calling for an emergency virtual meeting, which I could have asked a lot of people to drop everything they were doing and hop on a meeting. Instead, I got on Slack. I created a member survey channel. I invited all the appropriate people. And by using that tool, I was able to quickly identify all the miscommunications. We agreed upon a solution, provided a clear path forward for the survey team, problem solved. I could not have done that over email nearly as fast or effectively. And I did it without making everyone drop instantly everything they were doing, because we were able to do it through that tool. Super valuable. And the price starts at free, which is my favorite price for everything. Okay, quick tip here, because we're talking about frequent and you don't want to schedule so many meetings and check-ins that you lose time to get the rest of your work done. So striking that balance between that effective communication and getting the work done can be a struggle virtually. So to help us balance that out, I recommend scheduling work blocks in your calendar that people can't schedule over. That way people aren't taking up all your time in meetings. Like, I will schedule 2 to 4 hour blocks at a time, or set aside a time every day, or block off one full day a week. I protect my Fridays. I don't like to take meetings on Fridays. And if someone really desperately needs that time, I will only accept a meeting at that time. If I'm able to reschedule my work block, I will not lose it. I would have to move it. Okay, so just blocking out spaces for you to get your other work done can really help. All right, I'm going to quickly continue through our next 3 strategies here. So varied. We want why. Why should we vary it up? Because simple. People have different communication styles. That's easy. So we should switch up how we communicate. How do we vary our communications? One is know and use people's communication preferences. It sounds simple, right? But not necessarily. For a project, typically you have a communication plan, which is, who you're sending what communication to and when. And for other teams' communications, what I like to do is I like to start a document and I ask everybody to indicate their communication preference. For example, I tell my team that I prefer chat for a quick question, text my phone if there's an emergency, or if you need to reach me after normal work hours, because I don't look at email after work hours, and email me only if you do not need an immediate response. Right, so there's very specific, like, use these tools in these ways and making that super clear. Because knowing this can be really useful when reaching out to people higher up, to important stakeholders, and within your own team. Right? This means if someone likes being texted after hours, like me, you should get their phone number and make sure you've got that so that you are able to do that. For communications to larger groups, I strongly encourage, again, this is like for virtual communication, try sending the same message through a variety of formats, meaning email, chat, message board, team calls, all staff message, whatever means you have, use them all. Like, don't say, well, I sent an email out and I only heard from half the people. Oh, well. Like, no, send out every which way. If they have a team meeting weekly, ask to be invited to their team meeting and see if you can take 5 minutes in different teams' team meetings to share out your message. Or ask whoever coordinates that team meeting to make an announcement to the different teams and put it on their team agendas for their team meetings. Like there's different ways to get messaging out, and when you're trying to message out to large groups of people, my answer is always all the ways. They're like, oh, how do I do this? I'm like, every which way you can think of. By doing that, your message is more likely to be read by the various people who have different communication preferences. Okay, a few tools to consider on this, right? So we've got a bunch because I'm talking about varying up your communication, and you can look at a bunch of these are listed in the tool spreadsheet that you've got, the other tech tools for PMs. But yeah, chat messaging, text, polls, surveys, online whiteboards are awesome. You can use flowcharts, diagrams, mind maps. There is a whole host of a variety of different tools to use to communicate. You can create infographics, right? There are free tools for easy infographics. You do not have to pay someone lots of money to make infographics anymore. And there's all these different ways to get your message out. All right, on to our next. So we have short, frequent, varied. We're going to talk a little bit now about effective meetings. And why? Because meetings are necessary. Virtual meetings with multiple people are harder to engage and connect with everybody versus a one-on-one meeting. One-on-one meetings virtually are definitely easier. Once you get a group, it starts getting a lot harder. So how do we have more effective virtual meetings? Here's some ideas. Here's some tips. Right? Send your meeting invite with a clearly defined virtual location. Don't just say phone or video. Even if you say phone, like I don't even like just phone. Instead, I would say, you know, Beth calls Melissa at insert phone number, or you put in the group dial-in number or your URL to a meeting. Because believe it or not, I actually get meeting invites with those vague locations. It'll just say phone call. I don't know who's calling who. I don't know where I'm going. Like, then you end up emailing each other. It just wastes time. So don't waste people's time. Be specific. Send out ahead of time the agenda. So this seems like super basic, right? But when I say that, I don't mean 5 minutes ahead of your meeting. Your agenda should include space for other people to add their questions or additional agenda items that they want to cover. And you should send that agenda out far enough ahead of time to give people time to review it and put their questions, feedback, items into that agenda before. It'll actually make your meetings more productive. You might be able to answer questions in advance to save time, and it can keep your meeting on track and to end on time. So the agenda should be included with the meeting invite so people can easily find it, of course. Don't make people search through emails to find your meeting agenda. Just add it into your meeting invite. And include an assigned facilitator and a note taker. Those should not be the same person. Try to have a different facilitator and someone else be the note taker. I mean, I guess it could be, but it's not ideal. Yeah, okay, so I'll share something silly that happened to me recently. I got a meeting invite for 8 months from now, and naturally I declined that, and I replied, like, I assume this is a mistake since it's 8 months in the future, and I got a reply saying, nope, this is a legit meeting invite. So maybe where you work, it's normal to plan for meetings that far in advance. I find it very strange. Too many things can change in 8 months. So my question to you all is, do you think there should be a limit on how far out a meeting should be scheduled? Something to think about, like, what is a reasonable time length out to schedule a meeting? Oh, before I get to these tools, so I did have another tactic, which is to start with a quick icebreaker, typically a fun question where you learn something about each other, or you can start with shout outs, right? Like, I love starting with shout outs. It gets people in a very positive frame of mind. It's just where you, like, show appreciation or recognize someone for their great work or their collaboration. If appropriate, begin with a round of introductions, but if you do introductions, make sure you model it first for the others in the group so they know what you're looking for. For example, me saying, I'm Beth Spriggs, Vice President of Technology. I've been with Lee for 3 years. I work in the DC office. It's very different than saying, hey, I'm Beth. I'm the project sponsor, and I'm particularly interested in learning how to monitor our budget and spending on the project, right? So you want to model how you would do an introduction if you're going to do introductions. Another tactic is like always share something on your screen. It could be slides like this presentation. You could have people turn their cameras on, share pictures, videos. It could be open collaborative note-taking. It could be an online whiteboard, but put something up for your visual learners. Some people need that visual space. So make sure there's always something for people to look at. Okay, so the tools to consider, some real-time collaborative document editing, appointment scheduling tools. If you have not ever looked at appointment scheduling tools for scheduling meetings, I strongly encourage it. It can make scheduling your meetings so much easier. Again, there's a list in the document that I shared out. And since I've mentioned icebreakers, I'm just going to share a few fun ones with you. Just if you're kind of wondering what I mean by an icebreaker, something super easy, quick, you can do. I actually have a very long list of these in a document. If anyone is looking for additional list of icebreakers, you can always reach out to me. I can send you a long list of them. And I am going to keep going, and then I will address some of these questions at the end as well that are coming up in the chat. But thank you for putting some questions there. So effective emails, we talked some about this. Why? Because most of our communication is in fact over email. Again, I love statistics. Here's some numbers. Oh, my PowerPoint shutting down on me. But basically what it's saying is that these are worldwide numbers. And I'm going to very quickly get right back to where we were. I'm sorry that that happened. Okay, so some quick worldwide numbers. Average number of business emails sent and received per day, 120s. Average number of legitimate emails, still far outweighing spam emails. There is a link to download the full report, but the point is there's ridiculous volume of emails that we all deal with because it is our most used virtual communication tools, email. So some tactics here. Before you hit send, reread your email for tone. This is super important when you're working across multicultural environments. People take things very differently depending on their cultural background in reading tone into your email, so be very careful. Highlight your calls to action by putting them in bold, use colors, put them at the top, put people's names next to it, put due dates in the subject line. For example, your subject could read, such as here, action required by date. Be specific and brief. In all the research that I did for this presentation, this one came up over and over again. Be specific and brief. I just saw it everywhere. How can you be more specific? This one I find super important. Don't use vague pronouns like he, she, or they. Use people's names, right? Because if I'm just saying, oh, yeah, he should do blah, 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 like which he, especially when you're in a thread of email. And this, I will say this is my absolute favorite. If you take one thing away from this, this is the only thing I want you to do different. When you reply to an email thread, reread your message as if the email chain below does not exist, is not there. And if your message does not make sense without the thread below, then you're not being specific enough. So consider that. And why? Because nobody is going to read the thread below. They will read your comment and stop there. So reread as if the thread below does not exist. Great. Use lists, bullets. Formatting does matter. Leave emotion out of your email. I think most of you already know that. It is not a channel for doing emotional stuff. Pay attention to other people's email styles. How they write to you is a good indicator of how you should write back to them. It gives you a good, if someone prefers one-sentence emails with no greeting or fragmented sentences, they just want to get to the point, someone else might find that terse or rude. But how they write to you will give you a really good sense of how to write back to them. Okay. I don't have any tools for this because it's email. So yeah, just use your email. That's the tool. Let's get on to our final strategy for virtual communication, which is how do we get insight into the work virtually? And this is really more one for those who are managing teams virtually. Like, it is really hard to get insight into the work being done. It is arguably one of the most difficult things to accomplish virtually versus being in person. Why it is harder to literally see what people are doing. So what are some ways that we can have insight into work with virtual staff? 1, set deadlines. Set task reminders for yourself to check in when those deadlines are approaching or are reached. And for smaller, simpler tasks, just communicating a deadline helps. Assign responsibility. Don't use the vague we when you really mean someone specific. I catch myself doing this all the time. I'll be like, oh yeah, we really need to get that report over to Mindy. And what I really mean is, hey, can you send that report over to Mindy? I don't actually mean we, I mean you. And every time I catch myself saying we, I stop and I try to be super specific on who. So make sure you are assigning responsibility. If you are delegating tasks, it helps to ask the person to write it down. You could write it down yourself and email it out, but I like asking the other person to write it down and send it out because that also checks for understanding and it makes sure that they understand the task the way that you communicated it and you're on the same page. So write it down, share it out for who is expected to do what, by when. It creates accountability and makes the expectations really clear. So during your regular, let me back up here. During your regular one-on-one check-ins with staff, have the staff person complete ahead of time a check-in document. These are things that I like to put in a check-in document. I'm sure there's many other ideas that you might have. But simply, what have you completed since the last time we talked? What are you working on now? What are your discussion items, right? What roadblocks? Where do you need extra help? And what are our next steps? So having these items written out and shared with you ahead of time can actually save you time during your check-in and allows you to focus on the important things. So when I use this format, I'm able to quickly read through what's completed since the last time and what are you working on now. I don't need someone to sit and read that to me. Please don't just like read to me this list. I can read it. And if I have questions, I'll ask. But then what we get to do is we get to focus our time on the stuff that matters the most, which are the discussion items and roadblocks. I still get the information I need, but it's more efficient use of our time virtually. Really make sure those next steps are clear. Most discussions should end with an agreement about what should happen next. And you can add next steps to the agenda document, email them out after, or add them as task reminders or checklist items. Great. So the tactic of reviewing a slice of work, that actually comes from the book Managing to Change the World. And this one piece in here is the important part. It's the basic idea that just as you don't need to eat a whole pie to know how it tastes, you can sample a small piece of the work to know whether it's on track. I think that's a very important concept to remember. You don't have to see everything to know, but make sure you get that slice of the pie of the work. Okay, so some of these tools here are very traditional project management systems are helpful. Time tracking tools. There's some really awesome time tracking. I'm not talking about timesheets. I'm talking about like these apps they have now, mobile apps where you can just say, I'm answering emails, click a button. I am now in a meeting, click a button. And it tracks how you're spending your time in your day. Really, really awesome, easy to use, can be a helpful tool. Document sharing for your check-in docs. Okay. So in summary, we actually just covered 6 strategies. Keep your communication short, frequent, varied, how to have effective meetings, effective emails, and getting insight into the work. I shared over 25 different tactics on that with over 14 different tool categories. And there were additional worksheets and resource documents shared out with you. That is everything we covered. I think I now have a little bit of time to go through some of the chat questions. I also want to just mention I do have a book out, The Project Manager's Little Book of Cheats. This book is actually very helpful for people who either are what they call the accidental project manager, or a lot for those who are not project managers but find themselves managing projects anyways. And it gives some really good, like, quick, easy, in the moment tips that can help you in your day-to-day stuff. Things like, you know, hey, my meetings are really suffering. How can I make these meetings run better? Turn to that page with that question answer and get some tips right in the moment that you need it. Like, there's a whole bunch of that in there. It is available on Amazon for $20. That is my brief plug for my book. Thank you for participating. I really appreciate it. Please do check out my website, bethspriggs.com. You can also follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn. And I'm going to take a few minutes to look at the comments in the chat window. So one question that came up is, how do you encourage people to prepare for a meeting, right? I said at many meetings, the agenda is known, but once the meeting, such a peer review, I find that few are prepared. Yes, that is, I find that as well. And it depends also greatly on the dynamic, right? I tend to find that people who report up to me are more prepared. People who are my peers or above me tend to be less prepared. I don't know what that, I don't know what that dynamic is about, but it is there. One thing that I do there for, I don't know if it helps at all, is I actually will say up front, hey, have you all, I don't know if there's pre-work or if there's other stuff you want them to review, but sometimes I will just set aside 5 minutes at the top and just say, hey, I need you guys to take a look at this and review this right now. And that can help. The other thing you can do to encourage people, I think, is to ask very specific questions and give them a deadline to answer some of those questions, 1 or 2 questions, before the meeting. And that will force them to start thinking about it before they show up. So it's basically giving out a brief assignment that they have to do ahead of time. And there's just another comment here: to reduce the length of meetings, would it be good to establish a format for how things are to be presented, like in order to reduce the length of meetings? I think that's a great idea. I think it's always great to have an established format. The more you can set something up that works and share it out with other people. Yes, and yes. To reduce the length of meetings, absolutely. I think it's a great idea to establish a format and to share that out and let others use the same format as well. I think that'd be really valuable. Any other questions or comments? If not, that's it for me.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Beth. One thing before we forget, I noticed in the registrations that we had a couple of people log in who had either .gov or .mil email addresses. I know from previous experience that there's been some difficulty being able to view GoToMeetings, so many of these folks have just been able to call in and they show up on the list as caller and with a number attached. So if that happens to be you, please send an email so that we know that you were online, and we'll make sure that you get a certificate for attending today. Also want to take a quick minute and let folks know that on Thursday, July the 13th in Charlottesville at NRAO 520 Edgemont Road, which is on the UVA campus in Charlottesville, Beth will also be presenting, but this time at a dinner meeting that is co-sponsored by ASQ Blue Ridge Section 1108 and also by the PMI Charlottesville subchapter. The topic is From Technology Adoption to User Adoption, How Technology Has Changed Change Management. So Beth will be presenting live and in living color on Thursday evening, July the 13th in Charlottesville. I know there's a few people on the line from not just our section, but also from surrounding sections here in Virginia. So if you want to make a drive up to Charlottesville on the 13th of July, please register, and we're happy to have you, excuse me, happy to have you come up. One last thing, quick reminder that the next webinar for June, and the final one for June, is next Tuesday, June 27th. Excuse me, toolkits for continuous improvement using systems engineering, lean and agile, by Laura Jensen, who's also a PMP. She's a program manager for NRAO in Green Bank, West Virginia at the Telescope. So it should be an interesting talk as well. We have a large number of people registered for next Tuesday like we did today, but there is still space for anyone who's still interested in registering for that, who happens to be online with us here today. I'm checking the chat box, and we do not see any other questions. So with that being said, and the fact that it's almost 1 o'clock in the East, we're going to thank Beth once again for presenting for us today, and for all of you for coming online and participating with us today. And we look forward to seeing many of you next Tuesday at noon. And until then, I hope everyone has a good rest of the day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye now.